everybody. Welcome to the Hallmark podcast. This is the show where we are talking about the romantic reading that we've been doing, the romance reading wrap up. And this is our, I think, fourth month doing it, which is pretty cool. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Bree is here.
Hey, everybody.
Yes, how are you doing?
I'm good, girl. How are you, Miss
I am good.
Travel Bug?
I've had 2 trips since we last spoke, which is
Oh
pretty
my
crazy.
gosh. I
Yeah.
am so excited. I'm living vicariously through you because I just want to go somewhere, anywhere
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. They've been basically family trips. I went to Virginia to see my sister, and we just kind of hung out and spent time together, and that was great. And then I went to Southern Utah to our family reunion with some of my cousins and aunts and uncles and stuff like that. So party time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really, really fun. Have you had a nice summer? Nice quiet summer?
It's been nice and quiet and just filled with trying to keep the kids busy, coming up with adventures that don't cost so much money,
Yeah.
things that we can do here in the city, and it's been nice.
That's
It's been a
good.
lot of lazy days, but the days where we do get out and do things, it's a lot of fun. So
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's very good. Well, I hope you've been enjoying some fun reading. I have been doing pretty well for myself because I've had all this time in planes and riding in the car, and it's been pretty good.
perfect reading time.
Yeah, that's right. Best time to listen to Audible. How about you?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been balancing it with I was trying to get my DVR clear before Christmas in July comes. And so I was a little bit behind on some of the Summer Nights movies. So I watched Her Pen Pal and The Baker's Son back to back. I
Oh,
really loved both of those.
Her Pen Pal. Oh,
It
it
was
was
so
so
good,
good.
Rachel. Wait, what did you think about The Baker's Son?
I thought it was good. I liked it. It was definitely very bonkers. I this is a spoiler alert to our Summer Nights recap, but I didn't think they had the best chemistry. I didn't feel like he was really that into her. Felt like
Yeah.
she
Yeah,
was
you're
into
right.
him,
Yeah.
but I mean, I frankly probably would have liked it better if she had just gone off and done her own thing and he had married the ballet. He'd been with the ballet dancer.
Yeah, the Valley did.
But the baking
I
stuff
think that
was
the
great.
movie, I think it could have used another maybe 30 minutes or so.
Hmm.
'Cause, yeah, it
The
felt really rushed at the end. Oh, now I realize you're the one. And it's
Yeah.
just that's it. That's the end of the movie. And it's I need to see this fleshed out just a little
Yeah.
bit more.
But everything with the baking, especially the mayor, was my favorite. That was
Yeah.
hilarious.
I love the obnoxiousness.
Yeah, they would show up at his house
Oh my gosh, so I love the Hallmark app. That's how I keep track of what's coming out. And
uh-huh.
so the reviews are ruthless. I can't help but watch it. And I'm guys, it's a romantic comedy. You
Yeah.
forgive the obnoxiousness in romantic comedies. I mean,
That was the best part of it. What are they, nuts?
It's the best part. Everybody is in on why this guy needs to be able to bake bread.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So yeah, I was trying to get that clear, and it's just been well, when am I going to read? It's well, just sit and watch these movies and then just read later. It's fine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've still managed to do it, but I'm you have to do it because Christmas in July is days away.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's already started in Hallmark Movies and Mysteries.
I know.
Which is crazy.
Oh my god. I'm
And we will
it's not even July.
Yeah, we next week we have our Christmas in July preview with Jax from the Bubbly Sesh. So y'all will really enjoy that and getting to talk with her.
She's so great.
Yes, we love her so much. So yeah, we decided not to pick a Hallmark book this month as our main book, just because we don't want that to be kind of a thing that always has to be a Hallmark book. But we are talking about People We Meet on Vacation, speaking of traveling, by Emily Henry. And there's a brand new book, just came out in June. And we had both read Beach Read and enjoyed that. That was a pretty hyped book, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, pretty popular.
This one too. It's all over the
Yeah.
place.
Well, we will talk about it, but do you which do you like better, Beach Read or this?
I don't know, Rachel. I I have been thinking about it since I finished it. I'm like, I don't know. I
I
mean,
definitely would prefer Beach Read over this.
yeah, I
Yeah, and
think
I'll
so
explain why,
too.
but
I
yeah.
think that I don't know. See, like they were both super hyped, and like one of my close friends, like when Beach Read came out, I was like, oh, she's gonna read and love this. Like it's her jam. It's like right up her alley. It's kind of women's fictiony, but it does have that romance in there. And she read it, and she's like, well, I went into it thinking it was going to be the greatest book ever with how hyped it is. And she's like,
Oh,
it's okay. And I'm like,
see,
I get that.
see, mine wasn't that hyped. Like you had said how much you liked it, and so then I went and read it, but it wasn't like super hyped.
Yeah,
But yeah, there's just well, I'll explain a little bit more when we talk about this book why I liked Beach Read better.
yeah,
But yeah, let's talk about it. So the summary is like super ridiculously long for uh, this book. But so I wrote my own summary that's not as ridiculous as the one on the book. It's Poppy and Alex have little in common, but on a fateful car ride in college, they become friends and spend a vacation with each other each year following. As the years go on, will their relationship grow or will they stay just friends?
yeah. That's it in a
Would you say that's
nutshell.
accurate?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, what were your overall thoughts about this book? And then we'll dive into the gritty.
Okay. I It's a good book. If anyone's
Hmm.
interested in it, if you've seen the cover and you've read the synopsis and you're like going back and forth with should you pick it up or not, I definitely think that you should. Um, Emily Henry is just like this really fresh voice in like the romance fiction world right now.
Hmm.
Um, like she just really did something, I don't know, great with Beach Read. And so obviously it's like that nervousness, I think, with like, is the next book going to be good? And I think that this book is good. It just so oh my gosh. I loved the difference between Poppy and Alex. I love that she's more of the fun, spontaneous, and he's the more like, let me stay in this small town where we grew up and teach, and like I like seeing like that dynamic where the characters are totally different. Um, it just the we do get a lot of like time jumps, and while I
Hmm.
can see why we need those, it just at times it did get a little bit confusing for me.
Yeah.
But there's so much about this book that I also just really love. I love the premise of two people who are like, regardless of where we are in life and like nothing crazy expensive, we're going to go on a vacation together every year. Like, I
Hmm.
love that.
Yeah.
So, what did you think?
Yes. So I really liked the characters and I was definitely very tense of when are they going to get together already? Give me a break. Like just
Yes.
it kept you just wanted them to just come on. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. But I hated the nonlinear storytelling. I thought that was a very poor choice because I just felt like it took you out of the story so many times. Like you were getting that buildup, you were involved, and then all of a sudden now you're back 6 years, and now you're back 7 years or whatever, and or now it's this summer, and I just didn't like that at all. It would have been so much better if it had just been from day one all the way through to now. And I know that she was trying to go off of When Harry Met Sally, but When Harry Met Sally doesn't really jump around as far as timeline that much. Like it has like a couple flashbacks, but for the most part, it is still pretty linear
Yeah.
in building their relationship from point one to point. It's not going from it starts out with them in college and then you have the next scene and the next scene and the next scene and the next scene. It's not all of a sudden like college, next scene, back to college again. Like it doesn't do that. It stays pretty linear and I really didn't like that. I thought it was a mistake and I would love if if Emily is listening, come on the podcast because I would love to ask why she went that route,
Yeah.
and why she thought that that would make it a better story. Because to me that was not great. I did not like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, I think about, okay, what popular like vacation romance has there really been that was like a big deal before this? And like some years ago, not too, gosh, I think maybe 2017 or 2018, maybe 2019. I can't remember at this point. Like Christina Lauren, this author duo, they had this vacation romance called The Unhoneymooners. And like, I think that the whole setup of like, like if Poppy and Alex, if it would have just been like a fun vacation, set in the moment rom com or a romance in general, I think that really would have worked. But like you said, with the constant like going back and forth, while there were some aspects to that that were fun, like we were getting to see like these fun vacations that they went on, I would be so confused because I'm like, oh, well, now we're back in present day. It's, I think that, um, I don't know, something about in contemporary romance, it's really hard to do the time jumps versus like an historical fiction or something like that.
Yeah,
I think it's really hard to pull off. And this book, which had the potential to be such a great book, like it's Emily freaking Henry, the
yeah,
author of Beach Read, you know she's going to bring it. It just really made it suffer just a little bit because there were
yeah,
so many. I think that's the thing too. Is like there's
yeah.
so many.
That's true. And I feel like a lot of times, yeah, it's just flashing back to like one other part of their life and then going forward is something like, I don't know, I can't think of off the top of my head, but something like the notebook or whatever. It's like there's the past experience and then the current experience and it's flipping back and forth. But this it was a lot to kind of keep track of which vacation is this. Oh, this is Croatia. This is Tuscany. This is whatever. And I still enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't see what that really added to the story.
Yeah,
Even if people maybe don't mind it, I don't see how it makes it better.
yeah. I guess I think like having those flashbacks, maybe it's to build the tension a little bit more for us to really understand, okay, this is why they are where they are right now. Um, because it does like he says something towards the end of it when she says something along the lines of like real life. And he's like, that's the problem. Like, I can't be part of this like fake life that you're wanting to it's like
Mhm.
she says something along the lines of like us going on vacation, like that's my escape from real life. And he's like, well, hold on a minute, so I guess in a way the time jumps or the time slips can like kind of represent that a little bit. Like she's living in this fantasy where once a year she gets to escape real life with Alex, who's like best friend, love of her life secretly or whatever. And then she goes back to her real life. And it's like, but what about how he feels? And like, you know, when it's like a male and a female, like he's gonna go back to his quote unquote real life and possibly be dating somebody, and how are they gonna feel about that? So like you wanting to escape from your real life, like you have to keep in mind like what he has going on in real life, and
Mhm.
like he may eventually not want to or be able to, out of respect for where his life is at the moment, just pick up and go like you want to
Mhm.
go.
Yeah, I mean, did you think that Alex was sometimes almost uh too amenable to, like, I wanted him to have a little bit more sort of like uh a little
Have a
he would
backbone.
yeah, a little bit that he would say things when you're just thinking like, no, there's no way like he would agree to this, or he was so uh oh kind of willing to do whatever. He was such the how do you put it nicely, like, I don't know, he was just
Kind of
so
a
enamored with
pushover?
her.
Yeah,
Obviously, from the very beginning, he was
yeah.
totally in love with her. And and you wanted him to be like, "No." Uh, but what did you think of their characters in general? With them, you have Poppy, kind of the free spirited, doesn't want to be kind of strapped down to things, and then you have Alex, who's the more straight laced kind of type.
I liked that because, and I especially like it because they both come from these small towns in Ohio.
Hmm.
And I like that with Poppy, we really get to see that person that's like, okay, I'm breaking free of this like small town life and I'm going to like go to the big city and write like and be a travel writer or like whatever she does, travel blogger or something. And Alex is just like, well, I want that comfort. So we get like I really liked seeing that difference, but at the same time, like this is you can tell like this is your person. You can tell she
Yeah,
believes like this is her person, but their beliefs as far as like how they want to live their lives are totally different, you know? Like he's a high school teacher back in small town Ohio, and she's in the big city hanging out with her best friend whose mom is a therapist.
yeah. I feel like I just wish I could just say to all these people that 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 no matter what your job is, like you're not going to be happy in your life if you don't have fulfilling relationships. Like it does not
Yes,
matter. Like I don't know anybody who even if they have their dream job that is really like satisfied on that kind of real level from like not that it doesn't matter, but I just feel like I've just seen so many movies and what read so many books at this point where people are like, "But what about my job?" And I just want to say, "Who cares about your job?"
right. Nobody is happy, even in their dream job, all
No.
the time. Right.
Yeah, like it's an important element because it takes up a lot of your day, and your thoughts is your work and what you're doing. But it will never if you do not have satisfying relationships in your life, it will not matter if you have the most fancy job.
Absolutely. And
And
I loved
I'm not saying
one of
just romantic relationships. I'm just saying relationships in
in
general.
general, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I loved in the beginning when she's talking. I can't remember her best friend's name, but I loved the scene with her the
Yeah.
female friend. She's like, you know, my mom said something along the lines of, if you are unhappy, you need to like retrace your steps to the last time you were happy, you know, and
Mm,
that's kind of like I think that that really leads into like why we get all of these jumps with Alex, cuz for Poppy those are the moments when she was the most happy, I guess. Um
mhm.
but yeah.
Yeah, the going on vacation was the time when she could let go of her expectations for herself and what she thought she had to be, what kind of person she had to be, and to just have fun. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that. That you can kind of let go of whatever expectations people have of you and just be somebody different.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Emily, she said in the reading book clubs portion of the book, she says, "I set out to write in this book two characters with no obvious reasons to like each other, let alone love each other. Two people with so little in common that romance never seemed to be on the table, and thus friendship could blossom." And did you feel that way that Alex and Poppy were like genuine friends, even beyond being, romantic lovers, I guess?
I actually think that the friends part was a little bit more believable
Mhm.
than the romantic part.
I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
definitely.
agree. Yeah, that they did feel like they had a genuine connection, and you did feel like, "Come on, kiss already." Like, this thing's
Yeah,
excited. But
I mean, you can't help but root for them to just,
yeah.
"Okay, let's finally make this happen," because we know that, like, we spend so much time in Poppy's head. I don't even think we get Alex's perspective, do we? We don't get Alex's
I can't
perspective. I
remember.
think that would have helped too,
Mhm.
if we would have gotten Alex's perspective at some
Yeah.
point in the book. That might have made, like, the time jumps and stuff like that a little bit, more bearable.
Especially when he's with Sarah, because it's a little bit hard to believe that he would still go on these vacations and still all do this with
And you're in a whole
Poppy,
relationship with somebody else.
right? And especially because he knows that she does not like Sarah at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that was Tuscany. Wasn't that the big relation? That was the big trip
Yeah.
with Sarah when Sarah was there. Yeah, they had, I think, if I'm counting right, they had Paris, San Francisco, Tuscany, New Orleans, Croatia, and Palm Springs.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. I did think that the Palm Springs was pretty funny with the problems with the Airbnb there.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
then
Emily Henry delivers on the comedy. I mean,
yeah.
it's like so on point. It's like it's there when it needs to be and not there. It's not like forced. Like you can tell that she either loves like romantic comedy movies or read a bunch of like late 90s, early 2000 rom-coms. Like it's so good.
Yeah. Did you see kind of the When Harry Met Sally comparisons? She said that's what inspired her.
When you mentioned it earlier, I was like, "Oh, I see this." I finally watched Harry Met Sally for the first time, like, I think earlier this year, so
Oh, really?
yes. I've been going back, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, there's so many rom-coms that I've never seen," and that was, like, the first one that I watched, so
Yeah, Nora Ephron, her scripts were just the best. She writes such funny dialogue that I love that.
that movie was hilarious. I mean, the diner scene, I was like, "What is Meg Ryan? What is going on?"
Yeah.
I was, like,
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
But yeah, I particularly I liked when she says to the she says to the manager of the Airbnb, the owner, something about the air conditioner, and he says, "Well, have you Googled it?" So I, yeah, that would be the worst. And things just keep getting worse and worse. Like his back blow, he has a spasm in his back, and they finally give up. They're like, fine, we'll go
Yeah.
stay in the hotel. I think you could have almost the whole movie just set in just that one part.
That one part,
And
yeah.
that would be pretty funny. Just one thing going wrong after another. Christmas vacation, but in summer. That was funny, I thought. And yeah, did you have any other of the vacations that stuck out to you?
Um, I think I really liked Tuscany.
Uh-huh.
I liked all of them. I
That was pretty
mean,
tense.
yeah, they all I feel like served a purpose, but again, it does pull you out just a little, but you
Hmm.
also know like the reason that they exist in the story. It
Yeah,
just really just felt like, okay, she's really building tension here and like I just want these two people to freaking figure out if they're going
yeah,
to be together or not or are they just going to stay friends, you know?
yeah. I kind of wish that she hadn't. This is a nitpick, but that she hadn't made Alex such an archetypal hunky guy. Like I think it
Okay.
would have been kind of cute if they'd both been sort of nerdy types, you know.
Yeah.
But he's like the big, chiseled chest and the blonde hair, and he's tall and like very archetypal hunky Fabio kind of look to him. And
Yeah,
I was just
he
kind of like,
almost feels like kind of sexy dark academia because he's like
yeah,
what a
yeah,
high school like English teacher, English lit or something like
exactly.
that. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, you know that his students are all in love with him,
Yeah.
like all the girls.
She calls one of them. She's like, she sounds like a real B word, and he's
Yeah.
like, I'm not supposed to talk about my students, but she is. She's one of my least favorites.
Yeah, like I think if they did make this into a movie, it would be really cute if they kind of made them both sort of nerdy-ish.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that would be cute. change that up a little bit. So yes, then I thought they had really good chemistry. I thought the characters were well drawn, believable. That they built that tension well. We have the tropes for this one. Trope time. You have opposites attract. The forced to spend time together. In this case, vacation. Bad lodging, and then of course you have friends to lovers is the big one in this one.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
where would that rank for you in as far as tropes? What do you think about the BFF that somehow they don't notice for years and years that they've been in love with them? How do you feel about
Oh
that
my
one?
gosh. I mean, friends to lovers is definitely the dominant trope in the book. They are, like you said, opposites attract. They're very opposite people. Um, and I think friends to lovers can just be so hard to pull off because,
Yeah,
it's like, this is my comfortable relationship. And if we try this and it doesn't work, is it going to ruin the relationship that we have? And like, I don't really feel like that was a big deal in this story. It was just more so like they lead such different lives. And it's like, you know,
yeah,
even though like Alex's life seems a little bit more boring in comparison to Poppy's in the big city, like that's his life. And it's like, girl, like I don't want him to have to give up this life that he is comfortable with and that he's built for himself, um to like go cater to you.
yeah,
But at the same time, like y'all are gonna have to figure out how this is going to happen. So I think like the distance between them was also like a big like conflict in the book. Like they meet up once a year and go on vacation, but they live in totally different places and live totally different
yeah.
lives. So like how are they going to fit into each other's real life?
Yeah, and I guess it's just lucky that neither of them say had children or like these kinds of
There's a lot of conveniences.
this kind of vacation would be very difficult to pull off on a yearly basis.
Yeah. Alex was like a single dad of one
Yeah.
child.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Where would you want to go if you were just say you didn't have the kids and you could just go somewhere this summer? Where would you go?
Oh my gosh. I would love to go to like the Amalfi Coast
Oh,
in
yeah.
Italy.
Mhm.
It's like my phone screensaver. Like I'm determined. Okay. I need my own eat, pray, love
Okay.
experience.
Well, let me know. Take me with you. Because I've been there. I When I was 17, I went to the Amalfi
Really?
Coast. Yeah, but I've never been back. But I would love to.
Did you enjoy it?
Oh yeah, it was gorgeous.
See, like
It
one of
was
my good
really
friends,
beautiful.
when him and his wife got married, they went to Rome for their honeymoon, and he came back. He was so disappointed. He's like, "It sucks."
Oh,
He's
oh.
like, "It's so overrated." He's like, "It looks beautiful on TV." He's like, and then you get there and it's not that nice. And I'm like, "No, don't ruin
Well,
it for
don't
me."
listen to him. He's a grumposaurus. I loved Rome.
Did you? I was like, "You don't appreciate old world stuff."
But I would actually say go to Greece because it's way cheaper. At least it was. I mean, that was years ago, but I still think it's a lot cheaper than Italy, and it's
Yeah.
just as pretty.
And I think about it now, I'm like, she released this book at a time when people really need it. Like, yeah, the world
Yeah,
is
it's
slowly
true.
starting to open back up, but for the most part, a lot of people still don't feel comfortable traveling. And it's like, this is the vacation that you need. So while we have our thoughts and opinions on the usage of the time jumps and the different vacations in the book, it is kind of literally an escape for real
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah. I kind of felt like that if you were going to make at least a Hallmark version of this, I think you have the same cast from Roman Love with Italia Ricci and Peter Porte.
Mhm.
Or did you think that would be a good match? I mean,
I
he has brown
do.
hair, but other than that,
Yeah. I really liked her
yeah.
in that movie.
Yeah, I did too. I did too. I just feel like that would be like she would could be kind of cute and spunky enough, and he is certainly handsome.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm trying to
That's
think of the one that she was in most recently. Wasn't she in not a Christmas movie? She was in something at the beginning of this year, wasn't she? Um,
uh yeah, I
the
feel like she.
breakup boot camp one, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That was good. They could be good, but
Yeah.
it's so hard to believe that someone like, well, really, Peter Porte or Ryan Pavey would be single. She, like, come on.
Ryan Pavey would be the best small town high school English
although,
lit teacher.
although I think both of them are actually in real life single, so I guess the world is mad. The world is crazy, but yeah, it was a fun book. I enjoyed reading it. I was definitely just like trying to, tempted to put it on like 3x just to keep going because I wanted them to get together and because I was listening to it. So definitely had me engrossed. But I, like I said, I would not have done that nonlinear storytelling. That to me was not great.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
so, what would you give it out of 5?
I I think I'd give it a 4-star.
Uh-huh.
What about you?
I think I gave it a 3-star on Goodreads, but to me,
Okay.
that's like this is a solid book. I enjoyed it
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
3 stars for me because I'm stingy in my
That's fine. Yeah.
my
Yeah, really
Goodreads.
there's something about it that I'm like, this isn't quite a 5-star.
Yeah.
I'm just giving it time because it's Emily Henry. It's super hyped up. A month or two from now, if I can't stop thinking about it, then maybe I'll bump it up, or maybe by that point I'll realize like this wasn't really that great of a book. We'll see. It's just, we read it in its prime, like it's all
Mm-hmm,
over the place
mm-hmm.
right now. So
Yeah.
it's hard to really judge how you feel about it, I think.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast.
From the author of Miracles and Menorahs comes a story about history, responsibility for it, and how true love can change the future.
History of Us is the second book in Stacey Agdern's Friendship and Festivals series.
Available on June 24th from Thule Publishing and wherever books are sold.
For more information about Stacey, visit her website at www.staceyagdern.com.
That's staceyagdern.com.
All right. Well, let's dive into our reading roundup where we are
Yes.
talking about all the different stuff that we've been reading. This doesn't necessarily all have to be romantic, but most of it is. And I will start. The first one that I read is called The Runaway Countess. Oh, we should say that I forgot to say that the spice level on People We Meet on Vacation is pretty mild. There's just one scene of heat, I guess.
Yeah.
Is that fair? So, kind of like a PG-13, I would say. So I would give it like a mild
Mild,
to,
yeah.
yeah, a pretty
And
mild
literally,
heat.
if it bothers you, you can skim it.
Yeah, because it's just
It's no big deal.
it's one scene, and that's it. So yes, okay. So so we're going to do the reading roundup, and the first one that I have is The Runaway Countess by Lee Lavelle. She was somebody who was recommended to me to read, and this is kind of like a Robin Hoodish kind of story, and there's this woman, and she gets her should I try not to spoil it. So she knows who this Robin Hood kind of character is that is stealing from the rich to give to the poor and causing all these problems. Well, she doesn't want to reveal who that is because it's close to her, and she ends up getting uh, captured by basically like the sheriff of Nottingham kind of character, and then he ends up the person who's in charge of her ends up kind of they end up falling in love, so it's a little bit problematic. I feel like in that way that it's a little Stockholm syndrome
Yeah.
ish. She sort of falls in love with their captor.
Was this an
um
older book?
um when was this? Let me see. 2012. Yeah, so
Okay.
a little bit older. The Nottinghamshire series.
Okay.
Uh, the Once the darling of high society, Maisie Chetwynd knows firsthand how quickly the rich and powerful turn their backs on the less fortunate. Orphaned, penniless, and determined to defy their ruthless whims, she joins forces with a local highwayman who steals from the rich to give to the poor. Then the pawnbroker snitches, and Maisie is captured by the Lord Lieutenant of Nottinghamshire, a man who is far too handsome, far too observant, and surely as corrupt as his father once was. His name is Trent. And so this movie, it is very spicy, high spice. So
I
buyer
can
beware.
imagine. Yeah.
Um, it was okay. I had fun with it. It's definitely a little bit problematic and a little weird that she falls for this Trent guy, but whatever.
Yeah.
It's
Her
not high art.
captor.
This is not a high art book. But I think that this Lee Lavelle, she does a good job of creating pretty dishy circumstances and scenarios. She's good with the spice. So I liked it well enough. Uh,
Okay.
what about you? What's your first?
So my first is The Sergeant's Matchmaking Dog by Carrie Nichols. And I loved this. It's my first book by Carrie Nichols, but I'm definitely looking out for everything else that she puts out.
Mm-hmm.
It follows a girl named Addie. She turns like 23 in the book, so she's kind of young, but she is the legal guardian of her little brother. Their mom has like always had like drug addictions and stuff like that. And yeah, they one day are walking home and there's this new guy and he has this dog with him. He spent time in the Marines overseas, and when he came home, he brought a dog with him, and it was this dog that his buddy was training, and then his friend unfortunately passed away over there, so he brought him home, and really the dog just like walks right up to the girl Addie and her little brother and is like it's kind of like matchmaking type of situations like the dog like falls in love with them and they end up being neighbors and just the more and more time that they spend together, obviously, like feelings grow. And she's actually scared of dogs. So he's like, let me help you overcome this. But we actually, like, she explains where that fear came from. And it all kind of circles back to her mom and her addiction. And both Addie and Gabe is the hero, are both carrying a lot of guilt. So while it's a really sweet romance, it also really like just tackles the idea of guilt and how heavy that can be and how it affects the choices we do make and the choices we choose not to make. And I really liked it. It is a little steamy, again, kind of like with people we meet on vacation. There's like one scene, and I was not expecting it. So be,
Yeah.
cognizant of that. But again, you can totally skim it and just keep on reading. I really enjoyed it. So yeah,
Ah,
that's The
cool.
Sergeant's Matchmaking Dog, and it's by Carrie Nichols.
Cool. Very good. All right. The next one that I read is Once Upon a Puppy by Lizzie Shane. And we are actually going to have her on. We're going to interview her again. I've interviewed once before. I'm going to interview her this week and it'll air next week. And she's great. I love her. And this is the
I
second
loved
in,
her first book. What was the first
yeah,
one called? The
The
12
12
Dogs of
Dogs.
Christmas?
Hmm.
Ah, it was
Yeah.
so adorable.
It was really fun, and I loved her book for Hallmark Publishing called The Christmas Wish or The
Okay.
Royal Christmas Wish. I can't remember. Anyway, she's great. And this one, it's cute. It's about this girl named Denny who is a free spirited type. She has pink hair, and she's always that doesn't want to have a calendar, doesn't want to be stuck to commitments, and like traveling all over the world at a moment's notice, and that's kind of her personality. And then you have what's that guy's name? I forget the guy's name. Um, Connor. You have Connor, who is like your straight laced businessman. He's a lawyer and he wants to be made partner so bad, but they're saying, oh, something's lacking. And he's even though he's putting in the hours, they want to go with the other person, and he's very frustrated. And so he also has this dog named Maximilian who is a handful. And so he hires Denny to help train the dog. And they sort of realize, because her sister has just gotten engaged, and she's getting all this pressure that she needs to find somebody and whatever. And she realizes, she's like, this Connor would be like the perfect guy for my family. They think he'd be so great because he's this accomplished businessman and everything. So they make a deal that if she will go to his stuff, social engagements for the law firm, he will go to her family stuff. And so you got this kind of fake relationship, which is always super fun. That's always one of my favorite tropes. And also opposites attract. And obviously you know where it's going to go, but it was very enjoyable. I liked it a lot.
That sounds so cute.
Yeah. The dog stuff stressed me out a little bit because it's a really big dog, and it was like tearing up the couch, and so I'm like, oh, it would be stressful.
I love it.
But I recommend it. I thought this was a charming read. I think that our listeners would really enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you have
Um,
next?
my next one is Lizzie and Dante, and it's by Mary Bly. And if that name kind of sort of sounds familiar, it's because it's the actual name of the historical romance author Eloisa James. And this follows Lizzie, and she goes with her best friend. I can't remember his name. I feel like it's Grayson, but that may not be right. But her best friend and his partner, they go to this tiny island off of Italy called Elba. And we learn pretty early on that Lizzie has been given this like cancer diagnosis. It is pretty serious. There is a surgery option, but Lizzie is at the point where we meet her, she's decided she doesn't want to do that. And once they get to Elba, she meets this local, I think he owns like a cafe or something. His name's Dante, and he's a single dad of a little girl named Etta, and she finds herself falling in love with him. And um, it's really just I mean, obviously it's like a vacation read, so it's beautiful to read, I think, during the summer because there's just it's on an island off of Italy, and there's lots of descriptions of that, and lots of there's some really fun like food moments and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's this really beautiful story of like working at living life. And Lizzie, especially with the relationship with her best friend, he like really opens up about how hurt he is that she's not choosing to have this surgery. Like him and her, they met as kids living in the foster care system, and it's just
Mhm.
like that exploration of like every woman that I've ever had in my life has like chosen to leave me, and like you're choosing to leave me in your own way as well, like instead of like fighting to live life for a little bit longer. And it was so good. It is a little steamy. I mean, she meets Dante, they fall for each other, and things heat up really quickly. But again,
Ooh. Yeah, you don't name your character Dante if you're
and
not going to have a
right.
little spice.
Again, if it's not your thing, if it's not your cup of tea, I say skim it. It is a really beautiful book. It's also like a book for book lovers. I mean,
Uh-huh.
Mary Bly in real life is a Shakespearean professor, so there's just lots of Shakespeare stuff in there, like it's book stuff all over the place, like Perks of
Nice.
Being a Wallflower and stuff like
Ooh,
that. So I think it's good. I loved it, you guys. I loved it. So again, that's Lizzie and Dante, and it's by Mary Bly.
nice. Okay, then the next one I have is called This Time Next Year by Sophie Cousins. That's Cosens. And it's basically about these two people that were born they were the first babies of the new millennium. And then but one was born just slightly ahead of the other. And so the girl feels like she was like cursed because of this, that she got all this bad luck because of this. But they keep running into each other over the next well, starting, I think the first time they meet again is when they're 13, and then they keep running to each other after that. And it was cute. I enjoyed it. Uh the the male character was a little bit bland. I felt like he could have had more. Quinn, I think his name is, that he could have had more personality. He's he's kind of just there. I don't know. I didn't really love his character, but it still was overall a fun little read. I gave it, between them getting to know each other over the years, and she's becoming a chef and everything, and he ends up helping her, and yeah, I think that our readers will enjoy it. There's no spice in this one. It was pretty clean. Once Upon a Puppy, it doesn't really have any spice. Like they start a relationship, but there's no like sensuality in the book. So yeah, that one's pretty spice free.
Okay.
What about you? What's next for you?
The next one that I read is Confessions from the Quilting Circle by Maisie Yates. I am such a fan of hers, and this is one of her. She's written, I think, one or two other more women's fiction titles, and this is her most recent one. And it is about three sisters, Lark, Hannah, and Avery, and their grandmother has died, and she's left them this unfinished quilt. And yeah, so like Lark is the sister that's like always on the go. Hannah's the sister who can't she can't really believe that she's back in their small hometown of Bear Creek, and she's kind of like sacrificed everything to be she's like a musician. And then Avery's the sister that's built the perfect life and trying to figure out like, okay, I've built this perfect life, but what at what cost? And it's really them having to like lean on each other now that they're back in their hometown. And I loved the quilt. I don't know. There's something about like family history and quilts and that I just think go together so well. Um, it was so good. It's a really I think really good summer read. There is a little bit of romance in there, but the focus really is on I think the sisters and their relationship, and it's so good, you guys. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
Confessions from the Quilting Circle by Maisie Yates. I don't want to give too much away because I'm
yeah,
like, as I'm talking about, it, I'm like, you could easily spoil a lot of this book. So trust me, it's great. Go
hmm
pick it up.
yeah. That sounds good. My next book is not a romance. This was for my
Okay.
book club that I read it. It's called The Bookwoman, by Kim Michelle Richardson. And this is a very interesting. It's The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek is actually the full title. And this is very interesting. It's a historical fiction, based on this unique thing that happened in Kentucky, where they had people in Appalachian Kentucky, people that would literally turn blue
Oh,
because
the
of this.
blue people. Yeah,
The
I
blue
remember seeing
people.
that.
Yeah, I never heard of it. I thought she'd made it up, and then I looked at it, I was like, "Oh, that's real." And you see the pictures, and then it's not just like light, it's like blue,
Yeah.
which I thought was so interesting. And she is a book carrier, so she would haul up a whole bunch of books for the people in Kentucky. And she has some hard stuff in her life. Her dad is pretty terrible. You definitely hate him, what he makes her do. Her husband is kind of terrible. And but you get the feeling that he's basically kind of closeted and not able to be who he wants to be, which makes him treat her terrible. And the the whole uh, th- her whole life is just kind of sad, which is
Yeah.
hard. And so it is kind of a sad book, but she gets a lot, obviously, out of the books that she reads and her relationships. And I thought it was written with a lot of humanity. I felt there's something about that like Southern voice that I think is uh, g- very good for fiction. It just reads well. I don't know what the literary verb is for cinematic. You say something is just cinematic. It's just made for movies. I feel like that kind of that voice and that perspective, whether it's To Kill a Mockingbird or so many different have that kind of southern drawl that's just inviting and warm. And I felt like that was the case here. And I was just very interesting. I had never heard of this. I had never heard of the story that what that that this the blue skin thing, and I thought it was written with a lot of warmth, and so I enjoyed it. It was a welcome surprise and something different for me to read. So, and no
Yeah,
spice at all.
I've been like waiting to get my hands on that one.
Hmm.
The last class that I took, we read this book about a mother and her son from Appalachia or Appalachia, I guess, depending on
Hmm.
where we are.
Yeah.
Um, but in how like her son couldn't read because she couldn't read and her husband couldn't read. And she was like determined to have someone help her learn to read so that she could like as simple stuff as him getting homework sent home and her not being able to help him because
Yeah.
she can't read it. And it's like we just did this whole discussion on how that's kind of like a forgotten minority in America. And I'm like, wow, like that is really real, you know,
Hmm.
like that
Yeah. Can you
region of,
imagine?
yeah. So
Yeah, there
it
were
was,
people on my mission who couldn't that we worked with who couldn't read, and I just it blew me away. Like I just can't like they had to go shopping with other people because
yeah,
they couldn't read
yep,
the labels and
yeah,
stuff. And
yeah.
that I never had thought about something like that because it's just so ingrained in who I am, like to
Exactly.
be able to
Yeah, that's how
read.
I felt. I was,
Hmm.
like just traveling. She's like, I travel by basically relative location, like having to remember what is what. Otherwise, she's like, I can't read the signs. And
Yeah,
if someone can't go with her to the grocery store, then she doesn't go because like she
yeah,
can't read to see if it's her brand of coffee or whatever. So
right, yeah,
yeah, I think books like that are really important because that's like
hmm,
legitimately a group of people in
hmm,
our country that
yeah.
people forget about. So I'm
So,
so glad
what's
you
your
loved it.
next pick?
I read an old gothic romance called Thunder Heights by Phyllis A. Whitley,
Uh
and
huh.
I loved it. So it's about this girl Camilla. She's basically an orphan. Her mom's been dead for a while, and she's a governess in New York City. She learns that her grandfather is like deathly ill. She's never even met the guy, but he is like requesting that she come out to the family estate in Thunder Heights. And so she goes, and upon his passing, because he does pass away actually in the book, she learns that he has left everything to her, and two of her mom's sisters have been living with him. And so then everything suspicious and mysterious begins to happen. The more time she spends at Thunder Heights, her mom's death seems to become like a little bit more suspicious. Like her mom dies on a like is thrown off of a horse, and it's like she was this really fantastic writer. So like how did that happen kind of thing. And so it turns into this like really wonderful mystery. I think it was written in like the 70s or something. So definitely feels a little bit older, but I was in the mood for a mystery, and this
Hmm.
was perfect. I mean, it has the old creepy house, the family that, you know, is your blood, but can you really trust them? And it was so good. So again, that's Thunder Heights by Phyllis A. Whitney. And there was no spice in this one at all. So clean read.
Nice, nice. All right. Well, my last recommendation is, or my last book that I read is In This Moment by Elena Aitken. And this is another fake relationship story. So that's obviously a favorite of mine. So this woman, she has had this kind of crush on this guy for a long time. And he seems like he's interested, but he's like super afraid to make any kind of move. Well, she becomes kind of desperate because her ex wants is planning on pursuing custody of of their daughter, and so she needs to like show a more stable relationship, whatever, to the court. And so she basically asks this guy, "Hey, will you be my fake fiance, whatever, for this court, things?" And he's been interested in her, but he's been scared because of the big commitments that she has a daughter, and that's going to be like a big thing if he pursues that. And so he's scared, but he agrees to go along with it because he wants to help her out, and of course everything goes as planned. And so this has like two scenes that are a little spicy. You can easily skip over. But otherwise, not too bad. It has nice chemistry. It's a sweet story, and yeah, it's I enjoyed it. It was good. So, do you have one more you want to talk about?
Yeah, so my last one is Cold Case True Crime, and this is by Denise N. Wheatley. It is her debut with Harlequin's Intrigue series. So these are they're romantic suspense, but the suspense is a little bit heavier than the actual romance. But these are actually like sweet romances. There's the ones that I've read, there's been no steam on the page at all. So don't be fooled. If you're not into the steam, you can pick these up. This
Yeah,
one, it follows she's a blogger. She writes articles for like a women's website by day named Samantha, and at night her true passion is her personal blog that's called Somebody Knows Something, and it's a blog dedicated to helping solve unsolved cold case crimes. And she lives in small town Gatlinburg, Illinois, and a local gentleman was actually murdered, and his family and her are both like, it's very suspicious, and the case went cold after 48 hours. And there's a new detective in town that's come from Chicago named Gregory Harris, and he's very loyal to his boys in blue, but the more time that he spends with Samantha, he just can't deny that like she's really on to something. And it looks like some of the really key players in the town, like the main person that's the suspect is like the son of the police chief. So it has kind of those elements of, well, the people that are supposed to be protecting us may be part of the like the dangerous stuff that's going on. So they really work together to figure out, and help solve this crime for this local family. And I loved the way that it ended. I loved the way that she weaved the story together. The good guys are still good guys, but you got to like go along for the ride. And there were parts that were that were terrifying, just how realistic these situations could be. So yeah, I definitely recommend picking it up. She wrote one of my favorite Christmas romances in 2020. It was called Love at the Icicle Cafe, and she published that with Thule. And I was reading this and I was like, how is this the same person? Like, this is so dark and gritty and suspenseful. And like, she's literally the same author that wrote one of like my favorite Christmas romances of last year. So she's definitely somebody to keep an eye out for. And I loved this one. So go pick it up. And it's like a July release. So you should be seeing it like in the stores and stuff like that here soon.
yeah, it is amazing when these authors can just write about so many different kinds of things. Like Caridad Pinerio, who we had on for an interview, she does all different kinds of books.
Yeah,
She has like sci-fi and romance, and I mean just all over the
everything.
place. It's
Yeah.
amazing. That's incredible. Well, speaking of Christmas, we are going to be celebrating Christmas in July, and we are going to be talking about Christmas in Bayberry, which is a Hallmark publishing book. I haven't read it. Have you read it?
I have not.
Yeah. It came out last year, so that's going to be a fun one for us to catch up on,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about next month. So
Yeah.
that'll be great.
And check
Uh,
your libraries because I'm pretty positive that I've seen mine on like the library app or Hoopla or something like that. So if you don't
yeah,
live near a Hallmark store, I know I don't always tend to see Hallmark books in like Barnes and Noble or the grocery stores.
yeah,
Just check your library. I'm pretty positive I've seen a copy of it there.
that's a good advice. And then yeah, check Hoopla. And so Bree, where can people find you?
I am at Falling for Romance on Instagram. I also have a podcast I co host called the Categorically Romance Podcast. Also on Instagram. Just check me out on Instagram, follow my link tree, and everything is there.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So please take a look at that. I'm going to be having reviews for Black Widow and all the fun stuff coming out. So take a look over there. And then also make sure you're following the podcast at Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast all over social media. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave us your ratings and reviews. We really appreciate that. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. And we also have our patron group and merch store, and has a lot of fun stuff on there. So we appreciate taking a look at that. And thanks so much, Bree. This is always so much fun to get to do.
Definitely.
And we'll
Yes.
look forward to next month.
Talk to you all next month.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.